I'm going to start off with Mr. Ratzenberger, and it's always a great opportunity in a situation like this to be able to say, this is a man who needs no introduction, and then you get to introduce him. So I'm going to talk briefly about the things perhaps people don't know so much about Mr. Ratzenberger. First of all, I think as everybody knows, he was born in Bridgeport, proud son of the Park City. And everyone knows he's had a distinguished career as a performing artist. Less well known, perhaps, is that John developed packaging alternatives made from biodegradable and non-toxic recycled paper as a safe alternative to styrofoam peanuts and plastic bubble wrap. He has produced and hosted a cable channel called Made in America, which focused on, products made in America, and inspired other shows like Dirty Jobs and Deadliest Catch and Ice Road Truckers that celebrate the work ethic that built America's manufacturing strength. He's the co-author of a book called We've Got It Made in America, A Common Man's Salute to an Uncommon Country. And just as a brief aside on his distinguished performing career, it did begin here in Bridgeport at an improv comedy club called, I think this is one of the greatest names of an improv comedy club ever, Sal's Meat Market. He started out there when he was a student at SHU. So John, you've been a manufacturing advocate for a long time. Where do you see manufacturing in America today, and what role do you see for this American Manufacturing Hall of Fame?
Well, much like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, and I always remind people when I go around the country speaking about this topic that everything we do every single day relies first on someone's ability to put a nut and a bolt together. And if we run out of people, which we are, to put those nuts and bolts together, then we're on certainly a downhill slide. And so that's why I go around the country promoting, especially school systems, reinstating shop classes for middle school kids. Because nobody in the history of humanity is, the people that have invented Leonardo da Vinci, Gutenberg, Copernicus, Ben Franklin, Edison, Steve Jobs, nobody waited until they were 18, 20 years old to go into what they went into. Thomas Edison didn't say, hey, I want to go to light bulb school. He started when he was this big because he explored things around him. Da Vinci grew up on a farm, an illegitimate child. And again, Edison, he hung around a shipyard in Lake Erie, tinkering. So we have to reinstate the tinkering spirit in young children, then they become adults who innovate. Like Bullard, like Lacey. Every single industry started with one person inventing one thing. Every single one of those people started off as a child. And that's, for me, that's one of the most important aspects of, we have to get the school systems to stop assuming that we're all going to become poets. Someone's got to lay the bricks. Did that answer the question at all?
I think so. Any questions for John? We'll have opportunities to ask questions later too. Let me turn now to President Klinitsky. Anita, the college recently made some changes to make the advanced manufacturing program even more competitive. Could you tell us what was done and why?
Okay, I'll start with what we did after the first year of the program. To be successful in a manufacturing career, the person needs very strong mathematical skills, but equally important is the ability to apply those skills, to think 3D, if you will, to take a flat drawing and say, well, what would it look like in 3 dimensions? So what Mike Guger, our director of the program, established is that each candidate for the program completes an interview to discuss why they want manufacturing, but also completes the testing in terms of math, 3D dimensioning. So can they take what is in the head and have the hands manipulate it? Because you need both skills as well as communication skills. And part of this testing also encouraged students who may have had any gaps. We do an intensive 3-week program with them, really an introduction to manufacturing. Because what's the goal? The goal is that every student who begins the program has the ability, the skill to finish the program. And what I'm so proud of in our second year, every student who began the second year of the program finished the second year of the program. So when I was sharing those statistics earlier, so much of that is because of the greater strength within the program. What we also did, working with our advisory committee, is made sure we built in more and more time on machine. Because again, that theoretical knowledge does need to come to the hands, so that as you are working with the simple to the most complex machinery, there must be a linkage between that which I know and can I do it. And combined with that, the increase in internships as a requirement of the program. But that's where our community stepped forward. The manufacturers who said, I will accept an intern. Because interns are great, but they're also work for the company. But the reward for the company is that they can work with one of our students, really assess them as they're doing their internship. And again, I'm very proud to say most of these students then were offered the full-time position after the program was completed. And what we did have to say to everyone is you can't hire them till they're done. Don't steal them partially through, because they are now ready for that beginning manufacturing career. But we also want the company and the student to realize that as the company grows and needs greater and greater skill, the student can return for even more education and training at the college. And with our advisory committee, we just finished the prototype of what will become a 3rd semester course with more intensive training in computerized numerical control called CNC, tool and die, so that as the manufacturing skills that are needed by our local companies increase, our students will be there increasing with them. So I think it's just been phenomenal work with our staff, with our advisory committee, and the support of the local community. And students are there because our HCC Foundation very aggressively sought scholarships to help students complete this program. That scholarship support is critical. Our foundation stepped to the plate. So I could go on, I'll stop there at this moment. Lots of wonderful changes.
Thank you, Anita. Any questions for Anita? Welcome to ask questions. Okay, let's turn to Ken Lisk. Ken, you're the president of Pep Lacey Manufacturing. You do some fairly sophisticated manufacturing right here on the east side of Bridgeport, and Ken's also the vice president of the foundation. But you're not just a local manufacturer. You have long ties to the community. You sit on boards of manufacturing associations, as well as the board of the Bridgeport Regional Business Council. Can you speak to what it means to local manufacturers like you to have the advanced manufacturing program here at Housatonic, not to mention similar programs at the area high schools?
Sure, Chris. I think to start to answer that question, we have to remember that America's love affair with manufacturing over the last several decades, let's say we're no longer in love. And a lot of skills just were not being developed. And now there's a resurgence in manufacturing. It's just from a GDP level, it's a full 1 point ahead of the entire rest of the economy. So, but it's advanced work. It's not your father's or your grandfather's manufacturing anymore. And having that center here, that advanced manufacturing center here, to allow us to get skilled people in the door that are ready to work, gives us a tremendous competitive advantage. And coming out of the program, there's 34 credits. And it's a step ladder. So you can, in a year, get a very good paying job that's stable, that we need. We have machines sitting, I'm not we meaning not just Lacey, but manufacturing in general, that need people that can run them. And having this center and the ability to bring people in and then to further grow them is a major boost in the arm that is absolutely needed, and it's coming at the right time. Our skilled workforce is aging. You're starting looking at tool makers that are up in the mid to upper 50s. And they're
58 years old is the average.
58 years old is the average. And these are the craftsmen that are going to teach the next generation. So it's the exact right time, and we'll get that new generation in. We'll take that extra 1 point on the GTB and push it up, because the jobs are there. And this program and the ones that are at the other schools are going to drive that entry-level job that people can grow on. So, thank you.
Chris, just to interrupt, just notice the paintings on the wall, that should be the before picture.
It is.
Because when you have guidance counselors and teachers, when you talk to them about manufacturing or factory work, that's what they think about. You know, losing an arm or a leg or getting black lung disease. But as Anita referenced the CNC machines, that's computer cutting. So they don't mill it anymore, they put it in a machine. You can eat off a factory floor now. And I think I probably did a couple of times, but back in my youth. But that's one of it's the image, and people really aren't aware that it's not that anymore. Those are the before pictures. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And we want to add to this collection with the now pictures.
Right. That should be before, and then put the after pictures of what we have today. The clean jobs. Great. As a matter of fact, there was a welder, to start a welder, $80,000 a year. Can't find welders. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, all these paintings are a WPA project.
So we have a little bit of conflict of interest here at the college, because we have the art museum, of course, and a great art department and a commitment to art, and these are distinguished art. Mr. Lisk is constantly whining that we ought to take them down. But
Can I make a point before you?
just let me finish this one.
Okay.
In the other room, which you'll have an opportunity, we have some exhibitors in the other room, there is one painting that, and this is at least a step in the right direction, that shows a 1950 era Bridgeport brass, I think.
Yep.
And it's clean. It's relatively 1950. It's relatively modern. But I mean, to your point, John, I think I've seen some manufacturing facilities where I wouldn't be allowed to eat on the floor because they're clean rooms. And you have to wear booties and cover your hair and so forth. They need to protect the work from the workers. I mean, that's really what a lot of manufacturing is now. So, Ken, sorry.
I was going to say, I do tease about the painting, and it's become my shtick, but without this foundation, without all of this happening back in the height of the industrial era, we wouldn't have the opportunity to build on this today. So this was necessary. This is the foundation. Without this, we wouldn't be sitting here.
Well, the Bridgeport Machine Company, my travels doing my show Made in America, I go to over 300 manufacturing facilities all over the country, and many of them, at least half, are still using machines built here at Bridgeport 80 years ago, and they're still running like they're brand new. And in fact, any cutting machine now is referred to as a Bridgeport. It's like any tissue is referred to as Kleenex. Even though some other company's making it, cutting machines just say, well, use the Bridgeport, even though it's some other company. But this was the standard. It was right here. It was Bridgeport machines.
John, earlier you were taught, I just think there's a story that you told me earlier that I think would be very illustrative of what you were saying about welders. You met a gentleman that was going to hire welders in the airport.
Yeah, I was JFK flying somewhere. I fly too much. I realized that when I realized that I'm on a first name basis with the shoe shine guy in Dallas. Hey, John, how you doing? Hey, Tony. But I was at the airport. The fellow came up to me and thanked me for the work I'd been doing in manufacturing and et cetera. And I've always say that manufacturing is to America what spinach is to Popeye. We make stuff, and we're the best in the world at it. But anyway, and we're talking this and that, and I said, so where are you off to? He says, I'm going off to Argentina. And I said, oh, vacation? He says, no, I'm going to hire welders. He owns this company that makes steam boilers
Oh, okay.
just outside of New York City. And he had jobs for 20 welders, can't find one. And companies poach welders. I'm sure people in this room know about that. They'll hang out, see where the welder goes after work, and go up to him and say, hey, how was it? But that is happening all over the country. You know, and I think part of it is, and I don't want to take up too much time, but part of it is because we used to be an agrarian society, and everybody knew how to do something, and that was brought to the political process. So you had people in the political process who knew how to make things, because they were either farmers, or even though they were attorneys, they still knew about building things, fences, horses, taking care of horses. And now what we have is, I always said, if you're going to run for office, a mayor, governor, president, or whatever, you should be able to assemble a coffee table from IKEA. If you can't do that, then what are you passing laws that affect me and my family for? If you can't do something that simple, because at one time, everybody could do that. And we've now specialized, and we have to get back to that way of thinking, like be a Renaissance personality. It's nice to be the captain of the football team, but you should be able to read music as well. That's just sort of more well-rounded.
We started out with Ken. I see a hand.
Chris, also currently within the museum, there's an exhibit that's in the gallery right now in Mountain Hall, the next building, about the history of manufacturing.
Just to make sure everybody heard that, that's Chris Carollo, who's the executive director of the foundation and the director of development for the college. Very valuable guy. But pointing out that the museum right now is having an exhibit. And by the way, if you haven't been to the museum, please take the opportunity while you're here. It's really a treasure. The museum is having an exhibit on the history of manufacturing in Bridgeport. Let's turn now to Dan Wisniewski. Dan, you're now co-chairing the steering committee for the Hall of Fame. And you and other members of the steering committee essentially created all the rules and regulations and really everything. You invented the Hall of Fame from scratch. Tell us about the methodology and really why the members of the committee, all of whom are volunteers, put all this effort into this enterprise.
Well, I can get into the methodology. We go in depth on that, but based on the conversation that we've had, what I really like to go is the last point that you made, which is why. Why do, I don't even know how many thousands of volunteer hours have gone into this at this point, but it's been tremendous. And I think really what it comes down to, something John touched about, what we're trying to do is we saw a need and we're trying to create jobs. That is the goal, is to create American jobs in manufacturing. We have the means to find the right people. This is a microcosm, right? So this is our own little petri dish right here, and in our own little lab, which is Housatonic Community College. So what we're doing is we're doing a grand experiment, and we are going to see what happens when we see a need, which is to create jobs, and then we see manufacturing, which has the capacity that desperately needs qualified people, and then we see the funding, and the foundation has the funding. And so we take those things, and we've got these tons of available workers, tons. All they need are the skills. So we get them the skills, we get them, and we educate them, we pay for it, and they walk out the door and they have a job. That's what it's all about. Now, I just left GE after more than 15 years, and I'm not a manufacturer, I'm a communications guy. And I used to do big shows, produce big shows for Jeff Immelt and GE all over the world. And I sat in a lot of green rooms with Jeff and learned at his feet. And he used to say, when in Asia, they can make something at 60% of what they make in the United States, 70%, I can't touch it. I can't bring back jobs. 80%. He would say to rooms like this, to groups like this. If I could bring 3,000 American jobs back, I would. I can't. We will go out of business. But he said, and this is maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I was with him in, I think, Kentucky or Louisiana, and he said, if we can get to 80, 85%, right? If we can match that cost, now we can start having a dialogue. Well, the numbers I heard last month were it's 90 to 95%. So the costs of making something in Asia, when you include shipping, when you include rising labor costs, when you include energy costs in Asia, we're around 90 to 95%. So now we can make it here. So this is why we need to do this. We are on the cusp of the next industrial revolution. The technology is here, the people are here, the capacity is here. We have a current economic condition that is being sort of propped up by financial institutions right now. It is not organic, and we have to get to that organic growth, and that's going to come from manufacturing. So that's why we're doing this. That's why we believe in.
Questions for Dan?
I think part of you answered part of the question that I had. I was going to ask what are some of the factors that we're seeing an increase in high precision manufacturing kind of coming back. And then furthermore, what I'd like to probably ask is, what else can we be doing as a state and as a country to encourage this even further? So I mean, any one of the panelists.
I'll take a shot at part of that anyway. I think people are coming around little by little, the general public, to realizing that there's an unintended consequence of having everything made in China. They go to the store, this T-shirt is $3 cheaper than the American-made T-shirt, so I'm going to save $3. That's what they think. Well, a lot of people do that, and they put out of business a T-shirt company somewhere. And Bridgeport's a perfect example. That all these companies thriving, well, you put them out of business, those tax dollars aren't going into the city coffers anymore. Police department, fire department, the schools, the playgrounds, someone has to pay for all that. So you think you're getting a deal because you got $3 off on a T-shirt, it's actually costing you $10 more because those taxes are coming out of your pocket. And you put them out of business. And I think people are starting to realize that if I support an American company, those taxes come back into my city, my state, and we all rise in the same tide. But I think I see that around the country. People are just starting to get that. But that's one of the things that we can also give manufacturers a tax break.
So, and to that point, John, I think, when you read the paper, when you see how manufacturing is covered or any really issue is covered, there's this huge desire to simplify it, put it in a little box. So here's what really has to happen, because when I say this is the start of the next industrial revolution, I mean it. And when you do a revolution, you got to really look at the parts and dissect them. So the tax issues, okay? Let me give you a great example about what John is talking about. A lot of small manufacturers are set up as legal entities as S corporations. A lot of legislation gets passed around manufacturing that does not address S corporations. It's set up for other corporations. So that means that whatever tax benefit is going to manufacturing, all those small companies that are set up as S corporations get nothing. They get none of that benefit. So that's one key thing. The second thing, you asked about what the state can do. Infrastructure, right? It's finally getting some press. We have a very rapidly aging and deteriorating infrastructure. Infrastructure, not only rebuilding the roads, rebuilding the bridges, so that creates jobs. Okay, that's not all of it. We need to rethink, how is this infrastructure laid out? There's a huge benefit to shipping goods inside a country by rail. And right now, if you look at our corridor that we're in, we have really a horrible rail service. I mean, it's deteriorated. I'm not picking on anyone in the rail industry, but it's deteriorated. So we have to look at that. We have to get goods to market, and we have to connect the country. The other thing is building technology into any solution. We have to look at what is the next generation of technology. What is that going to look like? How can we put that in? And all these things are factors. Now, right here immediately in Bridgeport, what I would say is capacity. Okay, we have all these properties that are not being used, that are either in deteriorating or just empty. This is a huge opportunity to combine small manufacturers in one area. You used to have one large manufacturer in this area, let's say. You don't need all the space anymore. You can put 3 or 4 manufacturers in the same space. So there is currently legislation right now in the Connecticut legislature about improving brownfields, giving developers a tax break to develop these brownfields, cap them, and make them available for infrastructure, for manufacturing. That is something that can be passed. That would be a huge benefit, because I believe the tax benefit, correct me if I'm wrong, Ken, I think it's 0 up to like 3 million, and then it's like 30% after that or something like that. That's a lot of money. That will get a developer here to Bridgeport and say, wow, look at that. Let's get rid of some of the eyesores off 95. So I think that hopefully that answers your question.
Can I add a why to that, please? I think part of what is also maybe not thought of is manufacturing. If you look at manufacturing, mining, and agriculture, those are the 3 areas that actually take something that's a raw material, turn it into something of value. Those are wealth creators. And just talking to John the other day, even if you look at mining or agriculture, productivity is based on manufactured equipment. So that's the root, that's the foundation of the economy. That's what creates wealth, for lack of a better term. That's what creates money. The other piece is, for every dollar spent in manufacturing, there's $1.32 that's generated in other segments of the economy. That's the highest multiplier of any business segment. So as you're investing, as we are investing together into manufacturing, we're also helping out the entire rest of the economy to grow, so that the tax base grows, the life styles, people having great jobs, steady jobs. It's all part of you need to take that foundation and grow it. So adding the why onto both what Dan and John had said.
There's a question back here, I believe.
Yes, it's sort of piggybacking on what you all were just talking about, and it's also more of a comment. I recently completed a study of Bridgeport history, and there was a day in 1917 when the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, who at that time was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, came to Bridgeport and toured all of the manufacturing companies. And at that point, we were manufacturing 75% of the arms of the Allied forces in World War I. That's when we were the arsenal democracy. And FDR said at that time, you, more than any city in the country, are responsible for our success in this area. Now, I know obviously we're not going to see those days again. However, I want to congratulate this program for being a footstep to that. And I want to know, from all 5 of you up there, do you feel like this can somehow continue? Can it be a springboard for not just Bridgeport, not just Connecticut, but for the whole United States of America?
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, just yesterday, Adam Jones is right here, and Adam's the director of the Foundation for America, and we had a press conference up there in Boston to help start the Second American Revolution, because it has to spread all over the country. Because Lacey Manufacturing, whoever you are, you have vendors in Pennsylvania and in Kansas. So it's got to spread across the country. Otherwise, you're not going to get a crucial part for what you make. So it has to go across the country. And I think also we have to start dispelling the myth that it's kind of like it reminds you of the Emperor's New Clothes, where everybody says, well, the guy's naked. There is no such thing as a service economy. It doesn't exist. I defy anyone to explain what that means. You have to make something. As Ken said, it's the source of wealth is making stuff. But the service economy, unless I haven't read the right article, I don't know what that is. Tom?
Yes, I'm a third-generation manufacturer. There's a lot of pride in continuing my business, and I wanted to say that it's the aging workforce issue, and the efforts, and I'm on the steering committee. It's exciting to bring the awareness up of manufacturing and trying to get. We need to get a lot more youth involved to see, get them involved in doing something. Yeah, we need bean counters. We need people to work on machinery. We need all sorts of, it's not just going to be a guy working on a Bridgeport,
Right.
But it's important for us to keep collaborating with all the different manufacturing associations, with all the different schools to get all these, get the people, to witness manufacturing is not dark, dirty, and dangerous. And I think it's a great effort that we've got going here to, it's a success. Manufacturing is successful if you're still around in 2014, so you are advanced. So I
Yeah.
just,
The other part, thank you, Tom. The other part of this program is going on simultaneously, downstairs where we've got 7th and 8th graders, and they are learning about advanced manufacturing, and they're doing some work with their hands, which is John's big thing. We've got to get kids to do stuff with their hands. And John is going to actually tour the Advanced Manufacturing Center with those kids later, because what we've heard from people like Kathy Saint, who's a manufacturer, and she's on the next panel, I believe. She has done some research and found out that the key area, that's the time to get people into manufacturing, is 6th, 7th, 8th grade before they go to high school, because once they go to high school, they start having to pick their courses, and they have to have those certain math and science courses in high school. So, the plan is here, right? To your point and the other gentleman's point, we know what has to be done. We have to get to these students in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade and say, here's the opportunity. Would you like to walk out of a 2-year college and make $80,000 a year? I mean, I wish someone said that to me. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. No offense, Chris. And I ended up getting into communications, which is the antithesis, by the way, communications and law. Just my personal opinion.
We need to focus on manufacturing.
Right. So we know
We've converted you to a manufacturing guy, though, so.
Yeah, unfortunately, Ken got under my skin, and now I'm doing
I
manufacturing.
do that every day.
But so we know what has to be done, and now we just have to do it, right? So like to Tom's point, let's get all the organizations together and start figuring out how we're going to do this, and then this is the model, and then to the other gentleman's point, now we go. It's like a pebble in the lake, right? It's a ripple. You get the circle, and then the circles grow, and we know how to do it. Let's teach other people how to do it, and then let's make it national. Also,
it's generational, if I can just make a point. We tend to forget or overlook that when I was growing up, and back in 1870, whatever it was, we went outside and played, and everybody has this experience. You go outside and play. We thought we were playing, but we were actually using tools. We were problem solving. We were climbing trees, building tree houses, fixing our own bicycles, digging a hole, whatever it was, running around trying to find your dog. You were problem solving. You had to deal with the physical world, and you had to use your head. Well, now you've got 7th, 8th graders, they're playing video games. Well, that's a big industry. We're probably not going to lose that, but we have to remember that is the age you just said. It's when they're young, because we used to do it naturally. This is the first generation in the history of humankind that has grown up without the knowledge of the use of tools? First one.
The first risk assessment anyone's child does is when they're about that age, maybe a little younger, and they try to figure out, can my bike clear that creek?
Yes.
That's the real
Or that
consequence one,
whatever.
right? If you don't clear it, you're going home wet.
And you'll, and you'll learn common sense.
And you learn common sense.
Tony?
I want to bring it back to the Hall of Fame. All the things you're talking about fits right into the foundation's vision of the Hall of Fame. It is to go back to the history of manufacturing in our state. Not only the honorees today, but you're looking at, submarines in Groton, Pratt & Whitney engines in Hartford. You've got Sikorsky, and then you have Augustus Whitehead. Those are kind of the storytelling that gets to the 7-year-old, the 8-year-olds, just as I remember the first time I went to Cooperstown for a Hall of Fame. And can you talk a little bit about, is that really the vision of this Hall of Fame, is to kind of create a statewide center hub of education, of really just kind of planting the seed in these kids' minds that this is a part of their future?
Yeah, we want to plant that seed early on. There's something about completing something with your hands that's lost. And as somebody who was came up through engineering and now in the administrative end, I think I miss that the most, is that sense of completion, of accomplishment. And teaching that early on, it really gives us such a sense of satisfaction. It's impossible to resist. So starting here, this year is Bridgeport. It's an American Manufacturing Hall of Fame. You need to start somewhere. We're starting here. Next is regionally, and then we want to move, statewide,
New England,
regionally,
and then
nationally, as we grow. But it's all about bringing awareness. It's about promoting. It's about working with other like-minded people in other areas of the country, and just bringing back that whole concept of this is a real job. It's a clean job. It's steady employment. There's growth. It'll continue to grow. We just need people to be interested. So getting to the young folks early on so that they have a concept of what it is, they'll be very likely to at least consider going into the job. Right now, there's a lot of discouragement amongst parents. My dad worked for that, and you're going to go to college, or that kind of thing. But that was a different sort of manufacturing, and it was a different sort of circumstance. So if we can spread this and continue it across the nation, and just it's awareness building, and then part of it is also fund building to help people get into the field. I don't know if I answer that, or
From my perspective, I've been on the outside of this effort, but from watching it from the foundation and just kind of keeping an eye on it and watching it develop, it seems to me that the synergies are that by celebrating the past, we can engage contemporary manufacturers in dialogue, and precisely the kind of dialogue we're talking about, so that people who might have the opportunity to see the Hall of Fame honor something from the past will also have the opportunity to be exposed to the people who are carrying on that tradition. So that then it will provide an opportunity, and who knows where it goes. Obviously, we're just starting the thing. But the potential clearly is there, and I think you can hear from this discussion, everyone's thinking very consciously about that potential. To use this as an opportunity to deliver that message. And all kidding aside about the art, to give people the opportunity to say, here as we celebrate the past, we can also say the people who are most supportive of celebrating the past are people like Lacey Manufacturing, who are doing a very different kind of manufacturing, so they can deliver that message too.
And to that point, John's the one who insisted that we look at this in a national basis. So I would ask John, what have you're traveling all the time, what have you seen nationally as a need?
Well, there's a lot of efforts. Like, for instance, not too long ago, I was in Milwaukee. The Bradley Foundation And what they do in their high school there, they buy local buildings, houses, they're derelict. And in the basement of their school, they have different sections: electricians, carpenters, plumbers. And they teach the kids these skills, and it's the kids, under guidance, go and renovate the homes. And then they sell the home, and the profit goes into the school. And they've been doing that for years. And these kids, yeah, come out with a high school diploma, they're also a pretty decent carpenter or a plumber. And again, you know, you can go on and be a brain surgeon or a stockbroker, you know, that's your choice. But just the fact that you know that you have this skill that no one can ever take away from you, I think that's marvelous. You could go anywhere in the world tomorrow and get a job. But I see that across the country things are starting to pop up. And that's what we were up in Boston yesterday talking about too. In Amesbury, Massachusetts, there's a place called Lowell Boats, and they have a summer program teaching teenagers how to build boats. And I think we're at a tipping point in our culture. We were always a nation of doers, and then now it's like the doers and the theorists. It's like getting a flat tire. You either get out of the car and change the tire, or you panic. You know, I'd rather us become a nation of people just get out and change the tire. But more and more we get people that they're just panicking, don't know what to, and give the problem to somebody else. But I see that, and also the media, the media, you know, we're complicit in the fact that every time you see a plumber or one of those trades come onto your movie or television screen, they're made fun of, like a factory worker. You know, Gomer Pyle, you know, he was a master mechanic, but he was depicted as an idiot. And that's just not true. I was a carpenter here in Bridgeport, and as a young man, the smartest people I've ever met were people that toted around a toolbox and a thermos, because they were problem solvers all day long. And again, like I said before, people brought that to the state capitol when they were making decisions for the rest of us. But I do see that around the country, little by little. But people are starting to become aware, and especially in the media, they're just. And I always said the New York Times won't print an article about this until their elevator stops running. So what happened? Well, how come? Well, it's because we don't have anybody to fix it anymore. That's when they'll write the big article, but then it's way too late.
And you know, Tony, to your point, you mentioned Gustav Whitehead, and I see Frank Boris is behind you. And I know he's playing a documentary on Whitehead. Here's a guy who built an airplane engine 100 and something years ago in his shed, right? I mean, that's incredible. Now, Dave Tuttle at Platt High School, he just built the same engine, but he had all the modern tools. He built the Whitehead engine from Whitehead's plant, right? So he had all these tools. Whitehead built it,
out of old steam pipe.
Without a plan.
right, without a plan.
You want to speak to Al?
So that's
Here's the man who built the model of the Gustav Whitehead plane. Do you want to say anything?
We were fortunate to have pictures of what Gustav Whitehead did. And now we've analyzed these pictures, we've had engineers draw blueprints, and we made a model of the Gustav Whitehead airplane, which I built and flew. And so that was just amazing to me. If Gustav Whitehead if I could fly it, I know he could fly it. And so we should capitalize on that. We should let kids know that here in Bridgeport, someone built the first airplane, not the Wright brothers, Gustav Whitehead did. And maybe we can get some of these kids interested in working on model airplanes and continuing.
Sure. Bridgeport owns Whitehead. I mean, in the sense that they're intertwined. They can never be separated, and that is something that's a great example. It's a living example of innovation right here, and what can be done with, which John says, with going in your backyard and in the garage and building stuff with your hands. It's the embodiment of what is possible.
I'm going to exercise the prerogative of the chair at this point. I think we have to go to the next segment of our program. I just want to make a couple of comments just in reaction to what we've been talking about. First of all, I think for all the manufacturers on the stage and in the room, the challenge I keep hearing about is how do we get young people interested in manufacturing? You know, where do you start with that? How do you overcome this image? And even it goes back to the kind of the baby boom generation like us. We have kids. Do we want them to go to college, or how would we feel about them going to something? I think there's a speed bump there that has to be overcome too. And then to just get back to the culture of doing things and inventing things. One of my favorite stories from the late 19th century is Mark Twain's book, Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, when the protagonist gets unstuck in time and ends up back in Arthurian England. He's waylaid by some knight who says, well, I'll take you to the city. And he's describing this magnificent city where all these wonders, the technical wonders and cultural wonders, he's going to be absolutely amazed when he gets there, and he's talking about Camelot, but the protagonist just looks at him and he says, Bridgeport? That's what Bridgeport used to be, and of course the story then is the Connecticut Yankee overwhelms Arthurian technology with just things he invents out of what he finds lying around, and that idea is something that to recapture that I think is an important part of getting people interested in manufacturing too. So let me thank the 4 folks who are on stage, and we have a few more to call up, but if we could just have a